Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hey, welcome to Dinner's Going to Be a Little Late Tonight, National Dessert Day Special Edition. We are so excited to have you today.
Today, October 14th, is National Dessert Day every year, including this year. Despite COVID and all the other craziness, we're still celebrating dessert. And so we thought we'd mix it up this week and make a really cool dessert to go with National Dessert Day and another very special day in the calendar.
It is. Today is my 31st wedding anniversary. So bless my husband, who you might have met if you watched our episode when we were up in Tahoe and he made his famous scotteritas, also known as the most patient man in the world. But I can't believe I never knew it was National Dessert Day on our anniversary. That's just like such a win-win. From now on, it's always going to be a thing.
It is. It has to be a thing.
So, John, before we get going on this, it has to be a thing. So let's go back to last week for a second. What did we make last week?
Last week, we made delicious chicken. What did we make last week? Oh, gyros. Yeah, we made chicken gyros. So we made Mediterranean chicken gyros with feta cheese and this delicious sour cream lemon sauce and some fresh vegetables on top. And it folded up like a taco in a pita bread. And we ate it that night for dinner, and I had it for lunch again the next day. And it was really delicious.
It was great. I loved it. We had it for dinner that night and the next night. So yeah, that was a fun. And I know what I was thinking after I made it. I love the chicken, but I also love lamb. And I was thinking, what about if you could make that with like ground lamb? I think that would be really good too.
Ooh, that would be good. Yeah.
Isn't that good? Mix it up.
Yeah, it would.
So before we get going on oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Tell us what we're making this week. I'm excited. Dessert.
We are making chocolate mousse, and it is a super easy 15-minute recipe. I actually timed it yesterday. So one thing we're doing today is we split the recipe in half because the mousse has to chill overnight. So we want to be able to show you the finished product. So we split the recipe in half. We made half of it yesterday, and then we'll make half of it today. So I timed it yesterday to see if it was a true fact. And once you get all your ingredients out and you're ready to roll, 15 minutes and it's done. So like I said, it does have to chill overnight. And the thing that makes this mousse so tasty is that you throw in a little brandy, of course, because dinner's going to be a little late tonight, and we all know why, and a little instant espresso. And that just gives it, and you use semi-sweet chocolate. Honestly, you can use any kind of chocolate you want. I usually use semi-sweet, and then the brandy and the coffee just gives it, kind of tones down the sweetness, gives it a little more depth. I like to say it gives it a little more sophisticated flair. So we are going to whip that out today.
Because you are just a sophisticated lady.
Aren't I? Yeah, that's how I get described all the time.
One of the things I love about this recipe for mousse that Patty has had for years is that it's very light. It's very chocolatey and flavorful. But some mousses that I've had before, it's like you could put the spoon in and it was like concrete. It would just stay. And it was a very thick, very rich, and very filling mousse. And this one is delicious for all the same reasons, but lighter. And that's why I like it. And I think I had this the first time when we came to your house for Thanksgiving a bunch of years ago. Did you make it for Thanksgiving or some other meal you made it? We were at your house and it was amazing. So we're excited to share it with you guys at home. So let's get to it. Let's do it.
So it's super easy. The first thing we're going to do is, and just by the way, it wasn't Thanksgiving because for Thanksgiving, I always make pumpkin cheesecake because that's Scott's favorite. It was probably having you guys over for dinner and just trying to impress you. So the first thing, I know, right? You're thinking about all these years later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our eggs beating. But actually, no, what we're going to do very first is we're not going to start it yet, but just so we don't forget, I'm going to take my milk and I'm going to put it in my little saucepan and we're going to scald the milk. But I don't want to start the milk first because it's going to take a couple minutes for these egg whites to beat. And I don't want to overdo my milk. So I'm just going to have my milk ready to go. As soon as my egg whites are just about done, I'm going to turn on my stove. So I'm going to go over here. Did anyone notice that I'm on the other side of my kitchen today? This is my sink. Can I show you something really fun that I love about my sink, my faucet? You guys ready? Yeah, it's touchless. It's my favorite feature. Okay, I'm gonna go pour my milk in my saucepan.
You know what was really funny, Patty? When you first told me about this recipe and you talked about scalding the milk, I misunderstood you and I thought you said scolding the milk. And I was like, what are we supposed to say? You're a bad milk. You shouldn't have done that. Like,
scald milk. Well, do you know why we scald milk?
No, why?
I learned, hi, Ashley. Wow, Mississippi. M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I. M, I, crooked letter I, hunchback, I. Sorry, I could not help myself. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. So they started scalding milk. It dates back to old recipes where people, where's the third one? You need a third one.
I don't juggle. This is the best you're going to see me juggle. I will never get a job in the circus.
That's actually making me nervous that you're doing that. But so old recipes, you had to scald the milk to kill any bacteria because milk wasn't pasteurized. So obviously, fast forward, milk is pasteurized today. But the heating, it's a big deal if you bake bread, which not me, but it can kill off enzymes. It can keep bread from fully rising. Now, in the case, and you can also add it to sauces, like if you're making a bechamel sauce, it helps it thicken. But in today's exactly, the bechamel. I don't know how to say that. I thought I'll just say it really fast. Bechamel. And John will correct me if I'm wrong anyway, so it's fine.
Bechamel.
Bechamel. Is it bechamel? Mm-hmm. Bechamel. See, you learn something new every day. I don't make bechamel, clearly. Maybe we should. Anyway, yet I digress. In this recipe, we're going to use the scalded milk to melt the chocolate chips. But before that, we're going to separate our eggs. We're going to do 2 egg whites. And remember, we're halvesies. So when you make it for a full recipe, it's 4. 2 egg whites in your mixer, in your beautiful KitchenAid bowl, or your regular bowl with your hand mixer, and 1 egg yolk in the blender. So we're going to separate the eggs. Who loves separating eggs?
So I don't know how you do it, but I do it this way, where it's like I chop the egg in half, and then I just pass the yolk back and forth while the white. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I crack it on the edge of my bowl. I crack it open, and then I just go like that, right?
So isn't it really important, like really, really important, when you are separating the whites from the yolks? In order to beat the whites, you can get zero yolk into the whites, because otherwise it won't whip up, it won't fluff. Yep. So you have to be kind of careful. So here's the other way I was taught, which is kind of crude, but it works. And you literally put the yolk into your hand, and you let the whites leak through your fingers, and it's like your fingers become like a sieve, and then all you're left with is the yolk. And there you go.
Except you got that gooky stuff on your fingers.
I know. I gotta go. I was just showing, demonstration purposes.
Now, I also read on one of your recipes, John, in your soon-to-be published cookbook, about using a piece of the eggshell to get out any eggshell that fell in the bowl.
That's a good trick, because for some reason the eggshell, the jagged edge of the eggshell will grab the yolk. Like if you tried to do it with a spoon or something, it wouldn't grab it if you tried to do it with your finger. But for some reason, the eggshell works best. So if for some reason you do make a mistake and you get a drop or 2 of yolk into the whites, that's the best way to get it out, or at least to try to get it out, and scoop it out with a little piece of eggshell.
Very clever. All
now,
right, so John,
Ashley's saying her daughter uses empty plastic bottle to suck up the yolk, and I have never heard that, Ashley, and I love that idea.
Me too.
Love it.
Me too. That's so clever. So John and I were talking before we started that these egg whites and the sugar that we're about to add take a little while to beat, and we're afraid that's going to be a little noisy. So we're going to start, and if it's noisy, we're going to tag team and we're going to mute. So only one of us will talk at a time, which is what
well, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna mute, Patty.
Okay.
So you should talk, and I'll mute.
Okay. So all right, let's. So you're going to add your sugar. I'll illustrate while you do it. All right. So John is muting himself. So what he's going to do now, he's going to add the sugar in a slow, steady stream, and it's going to take, there it is, there's John and his sugar. So again, we're halving the recipe today. So we're only have a quarter of a cup where it would normally be a half a cup. So he's going to let that sugar slowly go into his egg whites and then beat them pretty stiff. So here's one of the things about these egg whites. You do want them pretty stiff. And when we get to the last step, you're going to say, what the heck? She's breaking down the egg whites that we spent so much time getting stiff. But through the miracle of science, it will seem like it's more liquidy and runny, but after it spends the night in the refrigerator, it comes out beautiful. So while John's doing that, I think I'm going to also get ready to turn on my scalded milk. So I'm going to heat that. But like I said, we don't want to start it too soon because you want the scalded milk to just get to the right temperature. And then you don't want it to really cool down because you want it to melt the chocolate chips. So while John's is going, I want to go back to 2 weeks ago because I have an update on our fresh herbs versus dried herbs. And last week I happened to do a cooking show online from a chef here in the desert. For those of you who are in the Coachella Valley, or if you visit us here in Palm Springs, there's a great restaurant. It's called Copley's, and the chef's name is Andrew Copley. And he is also doing a cooking show. It's a little different than ours. And so last week, you can ask questions. We were using a lot of fresh herbs in the recipe we were making, and he had some dried herbs. So I sent him a message and said, hey, what's this deal with this dried herbs versus fresh herbs? It seems backwards to me. The rule of thumb that dried herbs are stronger than fresh. And he said, yes and no. But I also want to tell you, he said, that's a good question. So I was very proud. He said it depends, and this is the key. It depends on how you're going to hydrate the dried herbs. So for example, if you're putting them in a soup where they're going to cook for a while and they're going to simmer for an hour, then yeah, they're going to be pretty strong. But if you're just going to add them to a sauce like the one we were making with some cream in it, and they wouldn't hydrate as much because of the thickness of the cream. But you know what he said? Just use fresh. So I think that's a great piece of advice too. When all else fails, go with the fresh herbs. So I just wanted to tie a bow and finish off the fresh herb controversy. So let's see, what else can we talk about? Well, John, how you doing, John? Oh, let's see. Oh, he's unmuting. He's got us.
Okay, I'm unmuting to show you my delicious sugary egg whites, good. All fluffy and rich and ready to go to the next round. But right. I do have to show off my fancy spatulas because everybody's got to have a good spatula, right? But my kids for Christmas last year got me these spatulas from, I think they're from Williams-Sonoma, or maybe, I don't know. But they're Harry Potter spatulas. So this one says Gryffindor because evidently I'm in the Gryffindor house. And this one says bravery, determination, and courage, which you need in the kitchen. You need these things. So there you go. These are my favorite spatulas from my kids.
Those are adorable. All right, so John, now I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to beat my eggs. And do you want to get us scalding the milk? And whatever story you want. I'll be back. Okay, so I'm going to start scalding the milk. So we're going to put it on medium. And milk is really easy to, scalding is just really simple. It's just heating it up until it starts to bubble around the edges of the pot. And that's when you know it's done. It's actually really easy. The trick is you sort of have to stir it every so often so it doesn't burn on the bottom of the pan. So medium heat, you're just going to heat the milk up until it's so this is kind of what you would do to make chocolate milk, but we're just getting it ready so that we can pour it over the chocolate chips and help them melt.
So I'm just going to give it a little stir already, getting there. And I don't know about you guys. I don't know how you make chocolate milk. But in our house, the way that we make chocolate milk is usually this way. So with real milk, and then we put the cocoa in, and then we put the sugar in, like the old-fashioned way. And I don't know about you guys. I do not like the marshmallows. I do not like the marshmallows in the chocolate milk. But a lot of people do. Yeah, Patty says no. No, no. She says no to the same thing. First of all, I don't really love marshmallows, period. They're not my favorite thing. Like, they're good if they're on the end of a stick, all roasty and toasty in between graham crackers and some chocolate. But marshmallows just plain, yeah, not so much. Okay, so it's almost done. I'm just going to stir it one more time just to make sure it's not sticking to the pot. And it'll be done, and it'll be ready to melt our chocolate chips. So we're drawing this out because we're talking to you and we're telling stories and all that other stuff. But honestly, Patty's right. This comes together in like 15 minutes. It's like, boom. You're done. It's in the refrigerator. You do it the night before. Go watch your TV show, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and it's ready. Okay, it's done. All scalded. So I can't really show you what this looks like because it doesn't, you can't really see it, but you can see it's kind of a, it's I don't know, can you see the steam rising? And it's all ready to go. So I'm just going to hold on to it here until Patty's ready to rejoin us. And then we're going to put all these things together. So in the meantime, while she's still whipping her whites of her eggs. So we also need a blender. And when we do this, and you don't need to have a big fancy mixer like this. You can just do it with one of those beaters. You can do it with your hand if you're feeling really energetic, and a wire whisk to whip those egg whites. But you need a blender because what's going to happen is we're going to put all of the chocolate chips and all this other goodness, the brandy, the espresso, we're going to put it all into the blender and then pour the scalded milk on top, and that will start to melt the chocolate. And then we're just going to whiz it up in the blender. And then we're going to fold it into the whites, the egg whites. And folding is an interesting thing. And I'm going to let Patty show us how we do that when she's done, because I've never really gotten it right. And you can't just mix it in because it makes the egg whites deflate. And then it turns into this liquid that doesn't really have that fluffiness that you'd want to have from a chocolate mousse. So folding is this kind of this technique where you're mixing, but not like mixing like stirring mixing. So that's part of the deal here too. So chocolate mousse. It comes a lot of different ways. You've probably had it in a restaurant before. I don't know if you've made it. But I've had white chocolate mousse. I've had chocolate budino, which is an Italian version of chocolate mousse that is very rich. And I'll tell you that, and I'm going to admit this to you even now as we're making chocolate mousse, my favorite is butterscotch budino or salted caramel budino. And there are 2 restaurants in San Diego where we live that make that dish. Amazing. And one is Banker's Hill Bar and Restaurant, which is my favorite place of all time. And the other one is Cucina Urbana, my other favorite place of all time. And they both make a budino that is to die for. However, today we're making our own to die for, very easy at-home version of chocolate mousse. Are you back, Patty?
I'm back and I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Excellent. So now we're going to take our milk is ready to go, our egg whites and sugar are ready to go. Now in the blender, we're going to put and our egg yolk is already in the blender. So we're going to put
chocolate chips.
Chocolate chips, check. We're going to put in some brandy.
My favorite, brandy.
And
did you know? So I asked Patty, I'm like, hey, I don't know if I have any brandy, but I have Crevassier. Or no, cognac, sorry. I have cognac. And I was like, I don't know if that's the same thing. So, the all-knowing G, the Google, tells me that they are interchangeable. So cognac and brandy are interchangeable. So I'm using cognac, whatever.
All right. And then we're going to put in our instant espresso. Give it that little bit of a coffee flavor. And then we're going to take our scalded milk, and we're going to make some noise again.
Wait, what about the egg yolk?
My egg yolk is in there because when I separated my egg, I put my egg yolk right in the blender.
Okay, so just one egg yolk though, right?
Yeah, one egg yolk. And then I'm going to do my scalded milk. Pour that in there.
Okay, I'm scalding the milk.
Bad milk, bad. I hope not. And yes, this is my pre-Scott blender. This blender is about, oh my gosh, I don't even know how old, but it's an osterizer. They never die.
Okay, so, I'm gonna mute.
All right. Well, this only takes a second, but we'll let him mute. So you've got your egg yolk, your chocolate chips, your espresso and your brandy, and then you put the milk on top, and that's gonna make it melt the chocolate. And we're almost done. It's crazy how simple this is. So health benefits of chocolate, right? Chocolate is really good for you. Studies show, first of all, let me admit, I eat chocolate like every day. Even maybe I just have to have a little Hershey Kiss after my lunch, just a little chocolate fix. But it's good for you. Lots of studies show that it may help lower cholesterol, improve blood pressure. This is a good one for me. Prevent cognitive decline by improving blood flow to the brain to prevent Alzheimer's. Reduce the risk of heart disease, heart attack, stroke. It's even supposed to help fetal growth during pregnancy and improve athletic performance. So I'm definitely going to be eating a lot of chocolate. All right, is it my turn to mute, John? Are you back?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to mute. It'll only take me a couple of seconds.
When I was growing up, my mom and my brother, total chocoholics. They would make chocolate desserts all day long. And I grew up with all kinds of chocolate because we lived near San Francisco and Ghirardelli Square was close by. So we would go to the chocolate factory at Ghirardelli Square and get chocolate, all different kinds of chocolate, and bring it home and cook with it. And so chocolate mousse was not on the menu. I grew up with a lot of chocolate things, but not chocolate mousse.
Well, it's funny you brought up Ghirardelli Square, John, because I was thinking about Ghirardelli Square today because I was using Ghirardelli chocolate and also Ghirardelli cocoa for my garnish. But whenever I think of Ghirardelli Square, I grew up in San Francisco and we used to go there all the time. Two kind of fun facts. One is I had a girlfriend in college who was from Virginia, and she came to Berkeley and she was very excited about Ghirardelli Square. And I had to correct her. It's Ghirardelli Square. And if you've ever been to Ghirardelli,
what's the correct pronunciation, Patty?
Ghirardelli Square. Ghirardelli. Not Ghirardelli. Ghirardelli. If you're a San Franciscan, it's Ghirardelli. So, John, do you remember the mermaid fountain in Ghirardelli Square? So that was designed, and that was by an artist named Ruth Asawa, who's a very famous artist. And I just got to show you something real quick. So Ruth Asawa was an artist, and her son, I don't even know if John knows this, her son dated my older sister. And Ruth was she just passed away in 2013, and she was a really cool artist, and stamps in her honor just came out. So here are the Ruth Asawa stamps. So if you've ever been to Ghirardelli Square, check out the mermaid fountain and think of Ruth Asawa. All right, so if you saw that, I was straight up.
So are we folding now?
Yeah, so right now we've got our egg whites ready to go. We've got our chocolate. We're keeping our fingers crossed and don't spill on our shirt. And we're just gonna pour that chocolatey, yummy goodness. If you looked at our Instagram story yesterday, you got a kind of a sneak preview because I posted a bunch of videos of me making this recipe yesterday. So pretty good tutorial. So I'm going to.
Okay, I'm trying to fold it. How do you do it to really mix them together so you don't get streaks?
Well,
right now it looks like, what is it when you get the Frosty that's half chocolate and half vanilla?
You just got to keep going. And what I was saying before, and I'll just say it again, you think, oh my gosh, I'm breaking down the egg whites. I'm ruining it, right? I spent all this time beating them stiff. And now I'm beating the crap out of them to blend the chocolate. It's okay. That's beautiful. Just keep going till you don't see any white streaks. And you know, with folding, you just fold it over. Just flip it over and go underneath and flip and
It's
underneath.
all about the wrist, right?
It's all in the wrist. And look how pretty it is. The colors, I think it's pretty.
It smells
It's so good. Okay, I have to confess, I made some garnishes this morning. And I don't want to give away what I made, but for breakfast, I had a quarter cup of white chocolate chips. They were so good. I had a little left over, and I'm a real sugar-aholic, and I started like, I'll just have one. And it was melted. Well, there's a little bit left in the bowl. And then I became like this ravenous dog. And I was like, I'm just gonna have a little more sugar. So, and then I realized I hadn't had any breakfast. All right, so once it's really nicely blended together, and I'm not quite there yet, it's a little picky. So, team milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate. What are you, John? Or all chocolate?
I'm good. I'm ready.
What kind of chocolate is your favorite? Milk, dark, white?
Well, it depends. So if we're making chocolate chip cookies, then I want it to be milk chocolate. If I'm eating chocolate candy, like from C's or like that, I want it to be dark chocolate. I'm not a huge white chocolate fan. I like it, okay. Like white chocolate macadamia nut cookies are pretty amazing, but white chocolate isn't really even chocolate. It's not chocolate.
I'd forgotten how much I loved it until as I said it about 9 o'clock this morning. So now this is probably the trickiest part of the whole recipe. And the reason it's tricky is because you want to try to pour this mousse into your ramekins. And you don't have to use ramekins. You could use a cool martini glass. You could use a little bowl. You could even just put this all together and freeze it. I mean, not freeze it, put it in the refrigerator in the bowl and serve it like that. That, I believe, is the traditional, real French way. So we're just going to pour it in. And, you know, again, your serving sizes are up to you, too. It is rich. It's like John said, it's rich, but it's not filling. My father, I got my sweet tooth from my dad, and he loved desserts. And my sister, the same one who dated Gonzalez, was an incredible cook and baker. And she would make these really elaborate desserts. And my dad would always say, just like this, John, tell me if I sound like him. That's a real gut buster. How was that? Was that pretty good?
So you guys, I have to tell you while I'm getting these ready.
All right, I'm pouring.
Daddy's dad, I was not his favorite person. So we're not quite sure what started it, but there was a pool incident with his flippers that I borrowed and somehow broke one. And he was not very nice to me. And I was only 16, and it made me feel kind of like he was a big, imposing, intimidating guy. And he never got over it. Never got over it. Like, until the day he died, he would say, oh, that John Bailey. Oh, I remember him. He broke my flipper when he was 16, 179 years ago. But anyway, sorry, I know he was bad.
He wasn't nice to anybody. Sorry, Dad. But, you know, it's true. So, oh. Yeah, it was that flipper. He broke the flipper. Never let him forget it. All right. So I did a pretty good job.
Okay, look. I have the finished. Oh, you're still doing that. I have mine all finished and ready to show.
Well, first, the ones that are done, or the ones you just poured in?
The ones that are done. But
well, that's good, because we have to do our pork pairing first. All right, so mine, poured it in my ramekin. They're going to go in the refrigerator. Before we show the done ones, oh, don't worry, Henry, you can watch it later. You can watch it twice. We're going to do our wine pairing this week is, anyone who knows their chocolate, is port. And I love pork. And just to keep with the theme, I brought out some special cocktail napkins to serve with my pork. Can you see that?
No. What does it say? Patty, is that your wedding napkin?
These are from my wedding, because as we've mentioned, my mother did enjoy her cocktails. So my wedding, we ran out of food. It was an open bar. Everyone got shit-faced. And I still have several hundred cocktail napkins because my mother loved cocktail napkins. And
and here's the difference between men and women, okay? And I don't mean to be like at all inappropriate. However, I don't know many guys that would save cocktail napkins from their wedding night. But I do know you are not the only woman I know that has done that. So I think it's awesome that you still have those. And see, here's the thing. We wouldn't have saved it, but we're sad we didn't. Like years later, you'd be like, oh, I wish I'd saved that thing. That would have been so cool. Or somebody brings something up, and you're like, why didn't I save that? So yeah. You actually do. We never do. And then we're sorry later.
Yeah, well, I do love to save things. I don't know I needed to save 500 because that's the box I'm working through. So it is time for Port Tips with Patty. So port, for those of you who don't know, is a sweet wine from northern part of Portugal. And the process is the fermentation stops early, which leaves that residual sugar in the wine, which makes it sweet. And there's many different kinds of port. But the two most popular ones, the ones that you usually see on a menu at a restaurant, are Tawny and Ruby. So Ruby is generally the least expensive and most produced style. Ironically, it's the one I like more because it's usually it's stored. The way it's made is it's stored in concrete or stainless steel, which makes it so no oxygen can get in. So that preserves its bright color and fruit-forward nature, which is why I like it, because I like sweet. So Tawny is stored in wooden barrels, which means oxygen can get in, and that oxygen and helps change the color to a darker orangey hue. And it also adds a more nutty, uncomplex flavor. So I went back to Total Wine again this week, and I got a Tawny, both from the same producer, Quinta das Carvalhas. And this is a 10-year-old Tawny. So I went for both so you can compare. And then John has a Tawny. I think you have Fonseca, right? Now this is
Fonseca, and it is also a Tawny. So I know nothing about port, so that's why I'm listening right now, because Patty's teaching me something. I don't know anything about port. I went to Portugal, and I didn't even have one taste of port because I didn't like it then.
Oh, that breaks my heart. So this is also Ruby, but this is a late bottled vintage. And what this is a port where the producer decided it was an exceptional vintage that they were going to age in wood for 4 to 6 years. So they're using the Tawny process on a Ruby port. And then upon release, it's ready to drink. So it could really, it smells so good, like I could literally drink it. Don't do that. I have a quick story about that. So and now don't get the LBV label confused with real vintage port. And that's where it's specifically one vintage, aged in barrels, released with the intention that the consumer will age it further. So let me pour this. Let me show you the difference.
Mine is very good. I couldn't wait for you and all the talking. I had to taste it.
I don't know if you can see, but this one is a little more orangey, amber, and then this one was, hence the name, more ruby.
And mine looks like rosé. Mine is kind of honey colored.
There is rosé port. There's cheers. There's rosé port. There's white port. Yeah, yours is really. So let's see.
But it's good. It's really smooth. I like it.
I love port. So the first time I drank port, and right at this, we're going to do our taste test. First time I ever drank port, I was probably around 24. I had just started to get into wine. I was hanging out with this young woman who I worked with who was dating an older man who was really into wine, and we were living the dream, going to Napa, getting to taste all this expensive wine. And one Saturday night, I went over there to her apartment, and he was there for dinner, and he opened a bottle of port. And I had no idea, and I know someone else might have had a similar experience. that it wasn't wine. That, port is an after dinner drink. You have one glass. Don't have more than one. Well, nobody told little Patty Carruthers that. We drank the whole bottle, her boyfriend and me. And I'm pretty sure I could not get out of bed the next day. But I've clearly rallied.
Ignorance. I did the same thing when I was younger too. And it's not something you drink a lot of. It's something you enjoy sips of. But let's go on the finished mousse, huh?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways, and Patty's going to show you. There's a lot of ways to garnish this. The way that I did mine was with whipped cream and a little sprig of mint that I grew in my yard, just for show. But Patty's are really beautiful. And I have to admit, I made 4 last night, and my daughter ate one of them for breakfast. So I only have 3 left.
Well, what did she think of it?
She loved it, of course.
Was it Sophia or Ava?
Sophia.
So I did do a couple of different ways. So this is just some whipped cream and a little sprinkle of cocoa. This is a little chocolate curl. So I had a success and I had a failure today. I've never made chocolate curls before. I got 2. And then the rest of it was just a chocolate block, which I'll probably eat for lunch. And then my go-to, my old school, if you saw our dinner Facebook or Instagram post, it had a picture of chocolate mousse that I made for a wedding shower in 1999 with my famous chocolate leaves. And these white chocolate leaves are so easy to make. You just take you can use a camellia leaf. We don't have camellias in the desert, so I used an orange leaf. You can use oranges, lemons, camellias, and I literally put some white chocolate chips in a ramekin, microwave them for 20 seconds, stirred them, used a pastry brush, brushed them on the back of the leaves, stuck them in the freezer for about 15 minutes, peeled the leaf off. Voila, chocolate leaf.
Wow, you're fancy.
Yeah.
I bought whipped cream in a can with the nozzle on the top from the Vons and brought it home and sprayed it on top of it. So, you can go fancy. She made her own whipped cream. She's making chocolate curls and whirls and swirls. And I put a leaf on the top of mine and some store-bought cream. So, there you go.
See that nice, creamy?
Look how beautiful.
Oh my God, it's so good. I'm going to try it with the tawny. This tawny is nice and smooth. Let's try it.
I don't know if you can see, but it's so light. It's really good. It's great flavor.
It is. We're just going to stand here and kind of, I know. Well, I have one more bite. I'm going to try it with the ruby now, with the other one.
So here's the thing about this recipe. It's very impressive. So if you're having friends over, or if you want to impress somebody, or it's your anniversary and you want to make something, it looks like you went to a lot of work. It looks really fancy. And it's super easy. It's like 5 or 6 ingredients, and it comes together really fast, but it's really impressive. So next time you want to pull out the fancy, you want to impress somebody, try this recipe. And it will be on the blog in a couple of hours once we get our photos taken. So 2dadswithbaggage.com, the recipe will be there for you to make. And of course, if you want to watch this video again, you can also watch that on Facebook or on YouTube at Dinner's a Little Late. Dinner's a Little Late is the YouTube address. 2 Dads with Baggage is where the recipe will be.
And it's a great recipe to make if you are having people over, because you can make it the day before. And it lasts for several days. So you can make it a few days before. Yeah, it's a go-to. So plan it, and then we'll see you next week. We haven't decided what we're making next week, have we, John?
No, but it'll be something delicious. We'll make sure to let you know in advance. It probably won't be dessert. It'll probably be back to something, probably something a little bit more hearty since we're going into fall. Maybe a stew or a chili or something like that. It'll be fun. It'll be a surprise. So we'll figure it out and we'll let you know.
Awesome. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. And just go to twodadswithbaggage.com to get the recipe and let us know if you make it. I want to know how it went.
Yes, please. All right.
Take care.
See you next
Thanks for coming.